Hello, welcome into this edition of Chi Time. We're here on YouTube, on podcast and on UK Health Radio. And on this episode of the Chi Time Collective, Your Energy Matters, we are looking at a deep connection with our energy right down to the cells and how we can activate this fundamental reset that continually goes on in our bodies. We want to be doing it in a really pure, clear, and let's face it, an innovative way. And I am really, really honoured to have as my guest here on this episode a redox signaling molecule queen. Yes, Anna Harpley is with us. So Anna has worked with the redox signaling molecules for the last 6 years. That's quite some time, isn't it? And she studied cellular health coaching with Dr. Gary Samuelson, who was the medical atomic physicist who stabilised the redox signaling molecules so that they can be used to augment the capacity of the cell to self-replicate. Welcome in, Anna. I cannot wait to continue this conversation with you. It's so lovely to see you here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a privilege to be part of Tea Time, Clara, and the legacy. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, bless you. So as you can hear, Anna is not English. She's calling in from the other side of the world. So where are you in the world, my love?
We're in the Antipodes, so
Okay.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yes, a long way away, but constantly, of course, referring to our heritage where you are, and therefore our affinity, I think.
Yeah, there's the real connection between Australia and the UK, of course, and my very dear friends come from there. And but we are here to talk about these redox signaling molecules. And when I was introduced to this about 6 months ago, I didn't even know what those words meant. So could you help us out here, Anna, and explain what are redox signaling molecules and why are they so fundamental for our bodies?
Well, let me say firstly that I'm not a scientist or a medical doctor, of course, and there are universities now researching these molecules, and there are many textbooks, and there's a space race equivalent in understanding them underway. But they are arguably the future of medicine. And we've just got a little bit of interference, Clara, but
don't worry, we'll just talk through it. Yeah.
Arguably, they are the future of medicine, and that's been, my passionate role as an individual is just to help people become aware of this tool, because I believe knowledge is power. And the beginning of redox science possibly was early last century, but it wasn't until a Nobel Prize was won in 1998 in the Karolinska Institute in Scandinavia, where a redox signaling molecule was identified for its role. They were previously considered waste products in the cell or not really understood.
Okay.
And what they are the signaling agents that our mitochondria make. So the mitochondria is an organelle in the cell, and it's called the powerhouse in common terms. It's the place where ATP, which is the processor of energy, is created. And mitochondria themselves are a fascinating subject because they have different genetics to the rest of the cell. But they produce these molecules, and these molecules are central to the creation of energy and, in fact, to the creation of life force, which is why this is so beautifully interfaced with Chi Radio. These molecules are made from cellular saline, and they are made at the speed of light. They are made and used or not used, and then they reconvert to cellular saline at a millionth of a second. So identifying what they were, studying them when they are fleeting by definition, and developing an understanding of this breakthrough has been a great step for science. What was achieved by Dr. Gary Samuelson was an ability to stabilise them. And
Right. So can I, yeah. Uh, so what might be interesting for listeners and viewers is to know that you already have redox signaling molecules in your system, don't you? And don't we? But the thing is, they get less the older we get. And this is where the problem is, isn't it? So what's great is that the body recognizes them because they're native to the body. So they're not something that we're sort of supplementing with something strange. We're actually offering the body like a boost of what it used to have back in the day, um, to be able to replicate the cells in a more like default position. I think that, as you get older, the cells replicate in fragmented ways, don't they, with your distortions and stuff. But these redox signaling molecules come in to remind the cells how to actually replicate to the truth of their original DNA. Is that right?
yes, well, they don't actually just take responsibility for replication. Obviously, that's an important part of cell function, but
Yeah.
they're involved in the standard statement is they're involved in the repair, replace, detect, and protect mechanisms in cells. So they are involved in detecting an issue and resolving it by signaling for repair. They detect abnormal cells, so they're critical for our immune system to recognise cancer cells and respond appropriately, which is why cancer is now being viewed as a redox deficiency. But as you said, as we age, we make less. And when you look out the window at a park and you see children jumping and laughing, ebullient, joyful, and if there's a scratch, it's healed in a day.
Yeah.
Children make a lot of redox in their bodies, and this level falls back as we get older. So someone over 50 is making arguably half as many as they made as a child, which is where degeneration and aging fit in.
Right.
So they really are a key to life, and understanding them and understanding our mitochondrial health and what we can do to maximize the ability of our mitochondria to stay well so that they can continue to make these is important. Some people have a genetic predisposition to retain mitochondrial populations and produce more of these later into their age, and other people have health practices which support their bodies, which of course includes qigong and other awarenesses. So yes, they're really key to cell function, not just replication, but repair mechanisms as well. And we are in a world now where we are exposed to a barrage of challenges, emotional stress being one, but also chemical pollutants and microwave transmissions from the live devices that people depend on now. They actually themselves punch holes in the cell wall, which is called the voltage-gated calcium channels are damaged by Wi-Fi. And it is a key. Redox molecules are the mechanism by which the cell detects damage and exercises self-repair. So they're critical for us in the world. In the modern world as well. And I would say that if we all lived in Eden and weren't exposed to the stress or the toxins of the 21st century, we probably wouldn't need to be as interested in them as we are becoming. The opportunity now to bioreplenish them means that we can self-repair and maintain ebullience, vitality, mental clarity, self-repair, recovery from illness, immune strength, etc., through the benefits of science.
Yeah, this is so fascinating. Anna Harpley is with us here on Chi Time, talking about the huge benefits of getting some knowledge and some actual supplementation of these redox signaling molecules. And you were talking about Dr. Gary Samuelson and how you worked alongside him, or you studied with him the cellular stuff. And how did you get in there? Have you always been fascinated by cells? Is this like one of your trajectories of like, oh, this is just so interesting, I'm going to have to do it?
I was actually born on a farm, and obviously farm animal health is always of interest. And I used to always want to run the nursing home for the animals that were unwell. So I've always been interested in what's missing, or what we could learn from nature and what natural medicines have to offer. And one of the appeals to me of these molecules, when I found out about them as a supplement or a beverage, as they are referred to in my country, because of their non-toxicity, they're native to the body. We can't overdose on them. They're either used or not used when we make them in our body. And if they're not used, they reconvert to cellular saline. So there is absolutely no way we can harm ourselves with them. But when we have plenty, the system functions well. So I suppose it's that curiosity to try and take away suffering.
Yes.
That drive to what can we do?
And the all health starts with your cellular health, doesn't it? And, you can be taking as many supplements as you want, but if your cell is not healthy, it's not going to be able to actually take up the nourishment of these supplements, which is something that I find very fascinating.
Well, that's actually one great message shared by Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, who's a well-known exponent of this supplement. She explains as a naturopath in the United States that patients come to her in a state of exhaustion, and they have a drawer full of superfoods which they're obediently supplementing with. And their bloodstreams are actually toxic with concentrates because they're super supplementing, but the cell condition is so poor in itself that whatever is floating by in the bloodstream can't really be used properly, because the cell is in a state of not only chi depletion, but damage as well. So what she does is she takes people off the supplements very often and just encourages them to drink water, hydrate, practice the simplicity and augment their levels of redox molecules through supplementation, and clean the system, render the cellular fluid pristine again, the content of the cell pristine, the cell in a state of repair, and then whatever supplements she reintroduces, the system is primed to respond. And natural medicine, of course, is a divine world in itself. But Dr. Samuelson, for all his incredible knowledge and wisdom, his breakthrough was considered to be, really worthy of a Nobel Prize. Stabilizing molecules that are stable in nature for a millionth of a second, stabilizing 14 to 16 of them and putting them in a bottle that can travel around the world to 33 countries. This was a breakthrough. But what Dr. Samuelson teaches is not even just redox biochemistry. He teaches a course called Cellular Health Coaching, and he's training people to go out into the population to rise up in position where currently, a lot of medicine, which is so pharma driven, has collapsed in reputation. And he says we need to revive the practices that bring health, that are based on nature and common sense. So he actually teaches about hydration, exercise, which builds muscle. When you have muscle, you have more mitochondria, which means you have more redox. He teaches about respiration and the importance of oxygenation. Cells need oxygen. And also mindfulness. So that is another aspect of his medical protocol for the new world. And I love that because, of course, what I didn't mention was micronutrients. That's the last in the series of necessities. And that is eating from nature, eating food, eating healthy, diverse foods, lots of colours, a lot of vegetables and fruits and so on. So it's common sense, but it seems that in a medical degree now, there isn't half an hour spent on nutrition.
I know it's really strange because as an ex-nurse, I mean, it was many years ago that I was a nurse, but it really working in that industry, which it is. It's I'm not. I think nurses and doctors they're really under a lot of pressure and they do a brilliant job. But the pharmaceutical industry has kind of got them by the short and curlies, for want of a better way of describing it, because it's like that's what they're trained in, and yet there's some simple nutritional protocols that, when they can be introduced to to people can enable them to get this the healing from nature, or from plant medicine, let's just call it what it is. I remember asking a doctor once, like, and he was like dosing out potassium tablets to some dear old guy. I said, well, I think there's potassium in bananas, aren't there? Why don't you suggest he has a couple of bananas or something? And he said, we can't know what the actual dose is. We need to know what the actual dose is, and we also cannot rely on him to have that banana, whereas we can rely on him to have this pill, because he will. And I just thought, so there's a disempowerment piece around that too. It's like, where's the education here for people to find out that actually your food is your medicine, your food can become your medicine. And there's an integrity to that, this returning to, I think this is a lot of what's happening. It's pointing towards that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the behemoth of the pharmaceutical model is collapsing, particularly in the last couple of years. So this is a great timing for this to rise up and people to start finding all the other tools that science can bring forward to us, and to complement the traditional medicines, which are ancient, and the wisdom from there.
Yeah, I think you're right there. This synergy between the different medical terms. In a couple of weeks' time, I've got a chap coming in who is an osteopath, and he's an acupuncturist. So he does East-West medicine. And I think this is the way forward, isn't it? To find that weave of what works best with the different modalities. And I know it would mean a lot of studying, but hey, I think we all need to become our own experts as well, and cross-reference and things like that. But I'm really interested in, like, so you were a farm girl who loved to look after the animals and take care of them, and then you've always been interested in natures and forms and bodies and beings and how they all work well. So what got you to come over to the redox signaling molecule arena? What was it that called you in?
I actually spent 3 months nursing my dear dad, and he was suffering from the consequences of a medical pharmaceutical error, and it depleted him so greatly he didn't actually survive the experience. And so I came out of that pretty exhausted, and having spent every day in a hospital for 3 months watching what happens and noticing that no one gets taken out into the sunlight, and there's no real fresh air, and the aroma of chlorine-based cleaning products is all pervasive, and the microwave tower is on the roof. I've known this for a long time, but hospitals are not a place for healing. They're an emergency location. And I used lots of alternative techniques, everything I had in the book, and we did have some, record-breaking recovery signs. But in the end, in his late 70s, he wasn't making a lot of redox naturally, and he didn't have the edge. He would have come out if the medical error had been made with a younger person. Right. So I was pretty depleted, and I had chronic fatigue myself, I suppose, after that experience. And my neighbour shared this technology with me, and I intuitively, I'll give my credit, when you talk about us having to take responsibility for our health, I think our hearts often know what's right if we give them space to listen. And it really excited me that this substance made from salt water, it felt so pure and simple. It just resonated. I loved the essentialness of it, and I decided to give it a try. So within 3 months, I had my energy again, and all the books I'd been reading about adrenal exhaustion suggested 6 months or a year, and lots of protocols and lots of rest. And it's interesting, this supplement walks in beside you and holds your hand, because it's a category creator. It's native to the body. It's not a foreign agent, and it's not something from nature. It's not a blueberry. It's not a nutrient. It's something that drives life within us. It works so gently that you actually forget where you were. Every day you're an increment better. There are trillions of cells in our bodies receiving attention, and each one at a time builds a momentum. So over 3 months, I just had to remember that I was so exhausted I could barely stand up. And then suddenly I had all of this energy to live a day again. And back came mental clarity, and back came the capacity to multitask, that cursed Clara that we've talked about, but just the sharpness that comes from being able to function as a human again. And we are divine structures and beings. I often think about us physiologically. There's an orb on a snake of oscillating structures, which, you know, in yogic practice is the pathway of the traveling of the life force. Then there's an agara, which is the hips, made of bone, which is, of course, parcels of sound emanating, vibration sharing form, on tuning forks, which we are divine. And what I found with this supplement is it gives it back. You can regenerate your cells and function in a way, once again, that taps into what's joyous about being physical and alive.
Yeah. Wow. Anna, I absolutely love that description of the body. Can't wait to listen to that back again. Thank you. Anna Harpley is with us here on Chi Time, and we're going to go to a track now. But after that, we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the some of the science that's behind this, and also some of the stories of the efficacy that people have experienced. I'm actually going to share some of my own story as well. But when we were preparing this episode, I was saying to Anna, in the middle, I like to play a track. Have you got anything that you would like to play or something? And you'd sent me something that had a backing track of pianos, and you like piano, don't you? Piano stuff.
Yes, I was raised in a house with a piano playing, so I just find the expression of the notes, it evokes for me the communications in cells too, you know, the magic of the chemistry of the sound.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, the sound, the frequency and the notes. And what inspired me to then share with you was that my son is a pianist. He's a keyboard player. And there used to be when he was growing up with me, there was a piano in the house. And I would just I'd feel so blessed that I was living with somebody who could play. And, even when he was in one of his ratty moods, that what he would play on the piano would be an expression of what needed to come out. And I felt it's such a percussive instrument as well as a melodic one. And so the harmonies would come through. And at the end of his expression of, there would be this beauty that would just appear. And it'd be like, this is a magical instrument. And so what we're going to play now is actually a track that was created by my son, Louis Pavlo, and his band Jouis, Jouis. And this is called Cat. And I don't know why it's called Cat, but I do know that it's played on his grandmother's Steinway Grand, which has a very special connection with him and her because she's now no longer with us. But he honours her in this track. And I hope you enjoy it too. Enjoy all the notes and the story that is told here. And we will be back with Anna Harpley and more around redox signaling molecules after this gorgeousness. Enjoy. On the Chi Time Collective with me, Clara Apollo. We're here with Anna Harpley discussing redox signaling molecules. You heard that sublime track by Jouis called Cat, which was, inspired by Anna's love of piano and my own, let's face it. Really a beautiful piece. Okay, played by my son. I'm going to name him. He's like, oh, Mum. But he's also the chap that's written the music that I use on the show as well, and I've never named him. And he's got a new album coming out in August, so I'll be lovely to share some of that with you at some point. But we're back in talking about these magical molecules indeed that are within us all, but we don't have quite enough of them the older that we get. And they are essential for cellular health. And Anna has been explaining some of the the science behind all of that in the early part of the show. And we're going to continue here with along those lines of like, what kind of sort of tests have been done? What are we talking about here? What have you got else to share with us about these redox signaling molecules?
Yes, Clara. Well, probably the most important studies that I could talk about are the safety studies. I think it's important for people to know that bio-replenishing something native to the body is safe. And the initial studies that were done, I think they were extensive, and a lot of money was spent trying to establish a toxicity, and it couldn't be established. All pharmaceutical drugs have what's called an LD50, and that is the number, the lethal dose at which 50% of the animals in the test no longer make it through. And that is how drug dosing is established. And that's what I find so refreshing about this new medicine, the whole world that we are now entering, where we do no harm and wish to do no harm. The rodents fed these molecules in studies back in the 90s by a predecessor owner of patents, or the emerging patents. The more the rats were fed, the faster they ran, the longer they lived, the thicker their coats, the more offspring they had, and the more quickly they solved maze challenges, and there was no overdose. So
wow, so they actually had a really nice life, because I'm not into animal testing, as I'm sure a lot of you who are listening aren't. But actually, to be able to give them this bounty and this like a possibility of having a really nice life, isn't that interesting?
The reason, of course, that this even happened was because the owners of the patents were aware that there could be profound benefits, and they wanted it in hospitals, which is, I believe, the place that this should be flowing freely, funded by governments to the people. Definitely. But in order to establish entry and registration as a drug, these studies have to be done. And so the safety was proven, and that's really baseline. But subsequently, there have been more studies. And of course, with millions of dollars and many more decades, we will have accumulating studies. But one of the central ones, and one of the early ones, was about glutathione. So our cells make glutathione. It's a natural antioxidant. It's a magic word for sports medicine and mental health, because it's understood to be depleted, or can be, if it's raised, it's beneficial in those fields. And in autism as well, glutathione is deficient in the brain. So what it was found, supplementing a double dose of these molecules for a few months, was the almost an immediate response, though, in the cell, a up to 500 to 800% increase in the efficacy of endogenous glutathione. So in science at the moment, we have the option to inject laboratory-made glutathione with mixed response and delayed benefit. And there are there are creams that can be applied to the skin, which migrate some synthetic, presumably, glutathione into the body, but nothing is equal to increasing the efficacy of your own bioidentical, your own native glutathione. And so it's been found that these molecules, when supplemented, increase the glutathione. Now, glutathione's been a bit of a magic word recently in the integrated medical field, because so many people are seeking a way to minimize the side effects, or reduce the side effects, or heal from the injection ingredients prevailing. And glutathione is the body's natural mechanism for detoxing things like graphene or other contaminants. And that glutathione study, which we can share later through your link, is also one which showed that catalase and superoxide dismutase, which are also important agents in the cell, were also increased substantially. So that's one little chunk of science. And
wow, whoa, blowing my head away here, going, you know so much, Anna.
Oh no,
Gosh.
I've just learned these things, and of course there's so much detail, but the
Mm.
challenge for common man, that being me, or common woman, is the science is immense, and we just want to be able to share enough of the truth of this to be able to parent it through the community as a tool, because
Right.
knowledge is power. So I can share these things, but it's not really complicated. The gene study was interesting. A double dose was administered to largely healthy 30-year-olds for 2 months, and there was a control group taking salt water and a group taking the molecules, which are made from salt water. And the group taking the molecules had an up to 30% reactivation of gene expression,
That's interesting.
gene signaling pathways, which are associated with the ability of the body to detoxify, for the immune system, for the ability, for example, of the ovum to lodge successfully in the womb, for thyroid health. There are a whole lot of pathways critical to modern health, which are all showing issues and concerns right now, that were aided by the supplementation of these molecules. So I'm told by experts in that field that a 1% reactivation of gene signaling pathways would have been something to applaud.
Yes.
So up to 30% was great. And maybe that is an explanation why many people I know who've had infertility issues or immune issues or digestive issues or arterial issues have shown benefit, because genes that have been switched off by stress or toxins have been reactivated, and that is very important in this world. Yeah.
Very, very, very important. That is fascinating, Anna. Thank you for sharing that with us here on Chi Time. So we're all different, aren't we? We all have responses to things in different ways. And have you got any examples of how these molecules have helped other people? I mean, you've shared your story, and my story briefly is that I think you talked about how you feel like you're having your hand held at a cellular level. And I feel this deep robustness and this connection with the chi practice that I do anyway. When the redox signaling molecules came in, there was, as I say, this, I can only describe it as a deep robustness. So like I felt even stronger. And I'm fascinated with this, the connection at that cellular level of the light and the chi and the energy, and then these molecules that are it almost feels like, what dimension are they in? It's like, how are they actually working here? Because there is a physiological component, but I really feel like there's another quality that is being activated in my cells as we sort of upgrade and become more light filled. And I think I'd love to talk to you about that maybe a bit later, but let's just stay focused on some more of the stories of people that have had very clear positive responses to using the redox signaling molecules in their lives for whatever condition you're now going to choose. Tell us about.
I would say they always work. When you give yourself more than your body can use, you would have to be drinking an enormous amount. And up until that point, every molecule you swallow is absorbed in the hydration channels of the stomach and then circulated through the liver to help assist in that very regenerative organ and detoxifying organs' capacity to prepare. Yes.
Can I just ask you something? So I've had this silent reflux, which was actually on last week's show, and I'm still dealing with that. And but what I found is taking these swishing around my mouth, allowing the mucous membranes to absorb there, but also gargling, so around my larynx that has been scarred, and then this healing of my esophagus that is occurring. I just know this is happening. I can feel it, but I'm intrigued to what happens with the stomach acid. I mean, they're not affected by that at all.
No, the molecules are obviously native to the body.
Oh yeah, of course, duh, yeah.
and for some reason, that doesn't seem to interfere. So once they're absorbed, they enter the bloodstream and then they circulate through the body.
Right.
And
okay.
Wherever a cell is sending out a signal that it's out of balance or in distress, in a state of oxidation or reduction, depending on the polarity of the challenge that it's facing. The molecules appear and they help the cell find its balance. So what we're really doing is repairing outward conditions from a cellular perspective, starting with the cell and the multiplication of the cells. And as they become healthy and they form tissues, organs, glands, systems, those are regenerated. We're not allowed to make medical claims about something that isn't registered as a drug. But I can say that I've worked with hundreds of stories ranging from terminal diagnoses to, inelegant fatigue, which has not got a big name, but it's very powerful in your life when you have that lack of life force. And in every case, the molecules bring the cells back to balance. And what's really interesting about this new field of medicine is that it's not from the pharmaceutical or modern model. It is something which the DNA determines. So if you consider that our ancestry, our heritage, everything our ancestors have withstood is all stored in our DNA. Every, even emotional memories are arguably now seen through quantum physics principles to be stored in our DNA. Everything is addressed through the DNA. And when it can express itself with the signaling or cell communication that it would so choose in a perfect situation, there is not much the DNA cannot direct, because our cells are constantly seeking balance. Yes. And the only missing link is their ability to communicate successfully with each other. And we are a living system. So when the system is flooded with liquid light, which is what I see it as, because these molecules are made and they break down again at the speed of light, let's just call them bioenergy, chi, then the rest unfolds. But you can see the effectiveness of the molecules. They are available in a liquid and also in a topical gel. And the gel is a concentrate of them with a convenient viscosity for applying to the skin. But for example, if you have a burn or a bite or a sting and you place the molecules on, you see the skin healing.
Can I just share with you, because this is exactly what happened to me. I burnt the palm of my hand rather stupidly. I was trying to make sure which of these hot plates is hot. I mean, what am I like? It's that one. And I'm like, should I put lavender? That's what I'd usually use, lavender. And I thought, no, I've got my gel here. Why don't I just see? Here's an experiment to play with. And you're so right. I literally watched the skin heal, and it didn't even blister. And they were really, I mean, I do remember putting the gel on my hands and then putting my hand outside the window because it was night and they needed to cool down, and the combination was good. It was really painful. And the next, I just kept applying them and applying the gel and being amazed at the speed of recovery and true recovery. And I said, usually you'd get a blister, and it didn't even blister up. I suppose the gel was forming that which was needed. And it took about a couple of weeks before actually some of the actual skin started to sort of like flake off, ages later, but there was no trauma left. I was absolutely blown away. Thank you for reminding me of that one, Anna. Sorry, I interrupted you.
A friend of mine was in a setting or a situation where there was a really serious burn, and a burns unit nurse was witness to the use of the gel and the outcome. And she said to everyone in the company, why isn't this in hospitals? We don't have anything in the burns unit that does this. Why don't we? Wow. And this, of course, is the challenge of the future, to bring these things in.
Well, it is. And as you refer to, this is future science now. It's like it's being bequeathed from the future. It's a breakthrough scientific protocol that, as you said, is available in a fluid, but also a gel. And I bet there's people listening going, where can I get hold of this? Where can I find it? Help us out here. So what do we do about this, Anna? Because it's an interesting way of working, isn't it?
There's the story of the company that owns the patents and their proprietary patents as well. And it's almost Willy Wonka's chocolate factory in Utah where they make it. But they own the patents to make these molecules. They're the only company in the world that does. And they learned very early on, when the pharmaceutical industry was interested to purchase the patents and shut down production, that the only way that people would actually ever find this would be if it was through word of mouth. So they formed, against their better judgment, because of the NAF image of network marketing, they decided to form a very elegant version of networking system for communicating this. And it's actually been a blessing, because good people you trust who've had an experience with this share with integrity to someone they care about what it is, and then parent them through the process of using it, which does require some conversation, because, for example, the first thing a cell will do when it has more communication capacity is remove the toxins that are latent, that it didn't have the biofield to excrete previously. So often we go through a wonderful detox, which is a privilege and a joy, but we need to be hydrated. So it's great to be there to remind people, please drink lots of water. Your electrolytes need to be wet for this to work.
We do, but it's good to remember the energy of water also being cleansing. And this is what I'm very excited about, is linking qigong with this redox signaling molecules protocol. So you activate the clearing channels, the meridian line clearing channels, and the channels of receiving, so that the detoxification process can be smoother. And it's like you say, you can go with it, and there's the honouring of that. It's actually quite marvellous. We are detoxing all the time. We have to. We live in a hugely toxic world, and we are all holding many, many different components of toxicity. So anything that can help, and water definitely, but high quality water, not water with other toxins in them, but also that so we're talking about a product which is called Asea, ASEA, and I love the fact that it's got C in there. It's reminding us of the water and the water element, and
it means of the sea. Yes.
It means of the sea. Yeah, because it's saline.
Because we are born from amniotic fluid. Our cells are in saline, and the electron valency, that is the electrics moving through the cell, is really related to having saline present. It's a fascinating science.
It is.
To explain how people access it, Clara, just as you found out about it from a friend, you have now obtained a wholesale account from which you can share it with others. And you can share that at the end of your show if you want. But we generally create communities around this and work together to support people who are embarking on redox bioreplenishment. And I would just say to anyone, don't let any medical diagnosis be your firm last point, because there is always hope, and the body knows how to heal itself.
Yeah, so true. It's supporting the body to do what it knows how to do it. I know that Qigong, being a self-healing movement, a mindful movement exercise form, requires the physical body to also have the right input as well, so that we're working as a synergistic unit of mind, body and soul. And we're going to come towards the end of the UK Health Radio version of this episode of the Chi Time Collective. But if you're listening on podcast or on video, I'm going to continue talking to Anna a little bit more about this sort of something I was touching on a bit earlier, around the connection between the chi and the life force and the light and the energy, because this is something that her and I talk about behind the scenes, and I would love to share it with you. But we're nearly out of time here on UK Health Radio. So Anna, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have done with us here. Is there anything you'd like to just to finish up with for people as we,
Just to express my gratitude, Clara. I believe knowledge is power, and that not every soul is called to healing. We all have our journey, and we must never judge people's choices. But for me, the human right to have access or to know this tool exists is really important. And even if it's just something that sits on the shelf as an idea and doesn't come forward until another time in life, or a friend is in need, as long as the seed is sown and you've just opened that door. So thank you. Gratitude. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. And what we will do now is continue having a chat, because we're here on podcast and YouTube. So we'll just say thank you to UK Health Radio and move on to this topic of what's really going on at that cellular level. With, you know, we hear a lot about the becoming crystalline structures, not so carbon based. We've got a lot of photonic energy coming through from the universe. Where how does the body hold more light? Hello, get your redox signaling molecules up, and then, am I right? Good way to behave. I'm feeling it.
I love that link, and this is where we can't be regulated, because the regulatory authorities don't have opinions about ascension or spirituality or spiritual clarity or connection. But that is seemingly what people will notice if they use this for a sustained period of time. I don't know how many trillion cells are in our body. Some say 10, some say 100. But once those cells are all sparkling and vibrant with bioenergy, something starts to happen. And what I can say about those who I've run into after many years, I may have met them initially because they were seeking these molecules. They heard them, they might help with an ailment. They found them, used them, and then I connect with them years later, and their lives are different. They have new careers, they have new spiritual practices, they often have new partners. It's as if an awakening occurs, and this is the unknown aspect of this supplement. Dr. Gary Samuelson said that he was given the solution to stabilisation. It was not considered possible in science to stabilise something you can't even look at because it only exists for a fraction of a second.
Like light, as you say, yeah.
It's light, yeah. And we are seeing a lot of, we're hearing from a lot of people who have spiritual practices. I remember speaking with a channel, and she said to me when I asked her about it, this was when I had just discovered it and I was still curious. I said, you know, what's your feeling on this? And she said, I see a wall of light.
I get this too, much more vivid colours, but also a clearing of the pineal gland feels very like what's been going on for me as well. And just being called into this restful mindfulness where, I mean, some people call it being, you know, downloads or whatever, but whatever the word is, there's something going on. There's a readjustment that is so deeply true to my nature that I can't make it happen. We have to surrender and trust the support all around us, and just know that there's so much love here and so much assistance for us to become, I'm going to say, the best that we can be. But if we've got ourselves on board for it, then it's more likely. So I almost feel like the angels are getting excited when we're taking these one and going, yes, we can really help to communicate there. I mean, I'm being flippant and playful here, but then so are some of the angels. You know, it is good to remember to not be too heavy about things and to take yourself lightly. And within the Qigong community anyway, that using the healing smile, that laughter lightness within you is a beautiful way of lightening yourself from within, and also using the visualization of light. But that can be mind initiated. But with this placing yourself, I mean, particularly this, we're recording this on the 17th of May, just after the eclipse, full moon, and enormous energies going on, massive, and solar flares and photonic energy, I mean, all sorts going on. it can take us out if we're not resourced. And that's the thing, isn't it? We need to become the robust, or let ourselves become the robust beings that we can be. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to walk the talk, dance the dance. So it feels like just such a gift that we have these now.
Yes, it's interesting you mentioned the pineal gland. Of course, it's made of cells too, and they are equally rich. These molecules are so small. There are just a couple of atoms in dimension. They pass through the blood-brain barrier. They're critical to the life of all the cells in the brain as well. And
Yes.
as the pineal gland receives the attention of the influx of redox, obviously it can detoxify and function at its primary and its most exalted expression. But not only the brain and the nervous system, and no doubt the nervous system that's been discovered around the heart and the fascia, also bone therapists understand the nervous system and the communication system, which is almost instantaneous through the body, running through the fluids of the body through channels that are lesser known. So all of that is enhanced by these molecules because they are smaller than all those mechanisms. But one interesting thing about the heart, and we know that its electromagnetic emissions exceed the brain's emissions, and the heart math people have established that really effectively. It's quite widely known now that the heart's field is very strong.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the cells of the heart have 2,000 to 5,000 mitochondria per cell, each mitochondria making redox, whereas a somatic cell has around 200 mitochondria. Okay. So clearly the heart is not an organ that can do without redox. And when you think that a lot of spiritual practices teach that the heart is the seat of the soul, and home is where the heart is, and there's so much language through history and culture reminding us that our inner wisdom is seated there, and it is an absolute manufacturing center for redox.
Totally. And I think it was something that you were talking about on another conversation that you were having with our dear friend Nikki Gresham Record, and around that you never hear anybody getting cancer of the heart. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. Is that because it has so much redox going through it?
Arguably.
Or one of the reasons.
Molecules among many, have many roles, and one of them is, as we said earlier, to detect abnormality and respond to that. And of course, we have abnormal cells generated in our body every day as a matter of normal living, and our immune systems handle them. As we age, our immune systems are not handling things as well because we're producing lower levels or redox depleted. I mean, aging is natural, but I think that, as we've already also said, that the duress we're under in the modern world puts additional drain on our redox supply. And yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it was that, I think the other thing that we talk about also is around decreasing inflammation, and that seems to be such a key factor in all chronic conditions now, and that what we can, stress is a high sort of instigator of inflammation as well. So anything that can help de-stress the system and to bring us into health again, because it's like, do we remember what health feels like? Well, tell you what, when after about 3 months of taking the redox, I actually felt levels of health that I hadn't been in connection with for about 30 years. And it's not that I felt, I feel like I'm younger, like I was in my 20s. I just felt of youthful vitality that I recognized, of like, oh yeah, I used to feel like this, and I'd forgotten what it was like. Yeah. And that's what's happening to me now, and because I'm continuing to explore these and being so grateful, and having also had an episode of the fashionable lurgy, as I'm referring to it as, I know that doing the redox has helped me clear that. I felt like it was a whole exosomic response thing, you can call it what you like, but I knew my system was ready to let go of that level of toxicity and to come into this, you saying, this refreshment and this clarity, and like, right, now I'm in more alignment with my truth again, so I can do the next stage. Does that make sense?
We have this in the family medicine cabinet for absolutely everything now. And what I didn't mention before is these molecules are, by definition, antibacterial, antiviral, and antifungal. So they are a wonderful support if you have an immune response. And even if it is along the lines of the exosome theory of the virus, we're just boosting our cells' ability to process that cycle and rid our bodies of the toxins and repair the cells. It's a blessing. When I think about the stress that people are under too in this world and in these times, arguably the limbic system, the emotional system is under oxidation. So when you flood it with something that can wind that back, and then there's a calm descent and a centeredness, and we're no longer in that inflammatory state, we're in a much more grounded place to really reason and process as our brain would most highly function.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. We can continue chatting for ages, and I'd love to get you back in again, and maybe we could do like a panel discussion at some stage. I don't know, ideas are coming through, but we'll be doing that on Chi Time TV and on podcasts. So, but what I would love to do just to finish off with is to come back to that heart energy that we were presencing a few moments ago. And I have my favorite bowls here, which is a therapeutic bowl. It's a Peter Hess bowl, and whenever I play this, everyone wants to know where they can get hold of them, and apparently you can't get them at the moment, so sorry about that, but you can get a load of them here on Chi Time, because I have a throat one as well. I love them. So I think it might be just really lovely to just finish this episode with you, dear Anna. Thank you so much. It's been so good speaking with you again, and encouraging your wisdom to come out a bit more and share this and share that. And like, wow, I always learn something when I chat with you. So thank you. So let us all just sit steady and easy, and just knowing that you've just received a lot of light codes, really, a lot of cerebral, intellectual information, but also there's been an energy exchange here for you. There's been something transmitted through what's been shared, that just honoring that in some integration time as we listen to this beautiful, pure sound of the heart bowl. This sound connect us all around the world. Wherever you're listening to this, know that you're tuning in with the energy and frequency of love at the heart of everything, and that you will always be beckoned back to love. It is your true nature. Just smiling into your heart, recognizing yourself here, and giving thanks for whatever you wish to give thanks for. And I give thanks for the ability that we have to share this information through these ways and these waves. And I'll put contact details and stuff if we're getting all sensible now, because I can feel we're all in a bit of another dimension. So we'll just stay here. Thank you so much for listening or watching to this episode of Chi Time. The delightful energy of Anna Harpley as well. Such a joy and an honour to be in your presence, my dear.
Thank you, beautiful Clara, for all you do for everyone with your medicine.
You're so welcome. And we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, keep your chi up, my friends. Your energy is important, as indeed